So, welcome to the second part of my conversation with Eric Shulman. This is where we get a little bit more practical with some good advice. I gave him a couple model scenarios of different people and different situations with their solopreneur practice and what they're trying to do, whether one's doing what they did in corporate or whether they're taking on something completely different. In both cases, he walks through like, these are some things that you should address before you really start diving into any kind of sales conversations. And it was just so practical. Sometimes I get so close to the work that I'm doing, I don't step back far enough to really see the bigger picture. And boy, did he nail it. So really, really good stuff in the second part. And I also wanted to point out in my newsletter, I have some interesting information regarding some freebies that he is offering, as well as what will be on the show notes page. So please connect with Eric on LinkedIn and check out his business and what he's doing, because he's a great resource to have. And he's still teaching after all these years. He's so good too. You can learn a lot from this guy. So welcome to my second conversation with Eric Shulman. Welcome to My Solopreneur Life. I'm Terry Pappy, your gracious host, and I am so glad you're here. I have a wonderful episode for you. Sit back, relax, and let's have some real talk about what it is to be a solopreneur. Eric, welcome back to part 2 of our conversation about sales. Let's get out of the stands and onto the court. I want my listener to have some really solid takeaways now that we've kind of touched on a couple things in the first part of our conversation. For this second part, I'm going to just kind of toss out some scenarios, but what I'd love for you to do is give 1, 2, or 3 practical steps for them to kind of improve their understanding as far as how they can incrementally improve their sales skills. In the first episode, I talked about that executive that took a package and wants to be a kind of like a high-level consultant. A lot of these execs, because they were making $500,000 plus they were vested, so they were making gigantic salaries in a lot of cases. And I don't want to imply anything, but they kind of have this I'm above that thinking, where it's like, I'm going to hire a sales rep, but yet they don't want to build a big company with lots of people. They want to just kind of do that nice cruise of consulting, get a couple of gigs together, maybe be on an advisory board or whatever. So they just kind of want to cruise. They don't necessarily want to have the pressure to, bring in a certain dollar amount. So when they look at what are some things that you can offer that will help that executive maybe reframe how they approach who they are when they get on the phone or when they reach out to a company or a contact in their network, because they have a very good network typically. How should they approach it? What are some like early thinking and some steps that they could take to kind of get in the habit, the practice of actually creating a sales opportunity?
If you're going to run a practice, you have to decide, first of all, how much business do I want? Do I want to make 5,000 a month, 5,000 a week, 5,000 a day? Do I want to travel? Do I want to be doing all of the consulting remotely? Am I going to be visiting clients' accounts? Am I going to be working locally, nationally, regionally? All decisions you have to make. My decision was I'm going to work virtually. I've got students who attend my classes from Amsterdam every Tuesday, and some in California and some in Toronto. So I don't need to be in a very specific location. When you're going to reach out to people, if you're reaching out to people that you know, your warm list, don't reach out to sell them anything. Reach out to them for input. Hey, I wanted to bring you up to speed on what I'm doing, and I had a couple of questions that I thought you could help me with. Everybody you know will be open to that conversation. And don't try to sell them. Tell them what it is you're doing, tell them who you're looking for, and ask for help. If they need your help, they'll say, well, what about me? We could talk about that's fine. But you're always third partying. You're looking for some help, some assistance. You're looking for their guidance, and they'll give it to you. It's not threatening to them. And if they need what you've got, you're already a known entity. The other thing you've got to do is you got to be doing 3 to 5 different prospecting activities. Revival calls, dealing with people you know, is one. Networking. Are you networking in organizations where you can bring something to the table and where they bring something to the table for you? 2 to 3 networking meetings a week. You can do them right from your office. There's all sorts of things like Lunch Club and Sales Hookup. I'm a member of the Connective. There's polarizing networks. There's dozens of these groups out there. Some are free, some charge. But you have to figure out, who am I trying to sell? If I'm trying to sell electricians, going to a CPA meeting may lead me to some CPAs who have electricians. I'd rather go to an electricians meeting. If you sell into the HVAC business, there's an HVAC organization that meets in every city and every state. That's where you should be going. I tell people, fish where the fish are. Go to the watering hole of the animal that you're hunting. If you're hunting CEOs, you're being at the private clubs, you're going to the golf courses, things like that. So go hang out with the people that you want to hang out with. Years ago, Aristotle Onassis, who at the time was the richest man in the world, was asked, what would you do if you lost everything and had to start over? He was in his 60s at the time. He said, I would get a job doing anything at all, find the cheapest place that I could to live, and I would wash dishes or do whatever for a couple of months, and I'd save up enough money to buy a good suit. And then I'd work for another month and save up enough money to have lunch in the best restaurant in town, and I would just go have lunch at that restaurant in that suit. And I would meet the people that I needed to meet to sort of get back on my feet. So figure out where it is that you need to go. If you're selling to doctors, where are the doctors meeting? Is there a conference? Is there a convention? Are there medical specialists or people you can tie into who could get you in to see doctors? Part of it is figuring out, who am I shooting for? Sales breaks into 4 basic steps. Number one, after you get done the prospecting, you have to develop a relationship. Then you have to diagnose their situation. Then you have to basically give them their solution, show them their solution, and then help them make a decision. Yes is a decision, no is a decision. I need to think it over is a decision. I've been married 32 years. I know what think it over means. It means no. 92% of the time, I actually have tracked it with hash marks, okay? So, and it's the same thing in sales. You have to make it okay for people to tell you no. Look, if you don't want what I've got, if you don't want the help, no's an okay answer. People aren't used to giving you no. People feel a little guilty when they tell you no. They'd rather tell you think it over. But Terry, if you tell me no, how much follow up do I have to do with you?
Exactly.
I don't have to chase you for the next 2, 3 weeks. I don't have to become a
Hmm.
rear end. And the next time you need me, you're happy to talk to me because I was the guy who took a no. Hey,
Hmm.
right now we don't have the money for it. Great. When should we talk? Give me a call after the first of the year. Can I touch base in December? Yeah, touch base in December. December. Hey, how things going? Probably don't have the money in the budget next year. No, no, no. We got the money put aside. Now you're talking contract in December. Sometimes it's a timing issue.
True. That's quite often, actually.
Yeah, we're in a contract right now. When does it run out? December of 2031. Okay, you're not a prospect for me. I'm not going around.
Yeah, that made me think of another scenario because I had a couple of these recently where I got a referral and I got on the phone with the prospect and they were obviously in transition. They were either leaving their job or something was going on where they were taking on a new passion project, or always in the context of staying a solopreneur, having a practice, to use your term. And they're stuck in indecision. And it's almost like it becomes like a coaching session to get them to realize that they're stuck in indecision, because many of them, it's a new thing and they've never done this before and they don't know where to start. I have one client who's like, she's afraid of making a mistake. So she ends up being in this paralysis of indecision. And it's very challenging when you're trying to help them move the needle for themselves to that decision. But if they haven't really done enough of their own inner work
I
or thinking about it, it's like, how do you deal with that?
I can help with that. It's called having a non-productive decision-making process. Most people
Yeah.
like to think things over before they make decisions. I was a guy who loved to think things over. I didn't realize how much it was hurting me in all areas of my life. So
Mm.
one of the things we have to do is learn to make quick decisions. We're so afraid of making mistakes, especially when we get a little bit older. When we were 5, 6, 7 years old, learning to ride a bicycle, we would fall down, we would get up, and we would ride. At 37, 47, or 57, if you fall down on riding a bike, the first thing you do is say, "Oh my God, I hope nobody saw me." We're so afraid of what other people think of what's going on with us. So you got to lose that fear. Your opinion of me is none of my business. Stop worrying about what people think.
Well, it's also about self-permission, giving yourself permission to actually follow your dream when everything has always been about, I got to have a job, I got to have stability, I got to raise a family, I got to make X dollars. And all of a sudden you're free to do whatever, and people are just paralyzed with that opportunity.
Let's take this person that was making six figures a year and has taken a riff or taken a leave. Number one, do they need to work or do they want to work? That's the first question. Are you working because you love what you do and you want to share it with other people, which is where I'm at? Okay, I
Yeah,
love
me
what
too.
I do. I utterly believe in what I do. I would retire completely, but I still feel I've got something left to give. That's why I'm not retired.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so are you doing it to generate an income? Or are you doing it because you love what you do? Can you donate
Mm,
your time to people? Or you're going to work with incubators? I mean, on Wednesday, I'm going to be at the management class at UCF talking about compensation plans. I don't have to do that. It's an hour ride each way for me. I'm not getting paid for it. But there's a bunch of kids in there who I'll be able to tell them what sales is really like, what management is really like, what pay plans are really like. And if I can help one of them, I feel like I've done some good this week. Okay.
I hear you.
So that's part of what we have to be doing. If you're looking to make an income from this, how much do you want to make? What is your
Hmm.
time worth an hour? If you're a $100,000 a year person, your time breaks out at $50 an hour. That's $2,000 a week, right? 40 times 50 is 2,000. That's 100 grand a year. So if you're a $100,000 a year person, when you look at what you do in your business, you have to ask yourself, is what I'm doing right now going to generate $200, $50 an hour? Because if it doesn't generate $50 an hour, I shouldn't be doing it. If I'm a $500,000 a year person, okay, is what I'm doing right now going to generate $1,000 an hour? And if not, you go do something else. So how do you get started? Who's my ideal client? By the way, done is better than perfect.
I agree. That's a great,
And
like,
you
hello.
do not, you do not need to have everything set up.
I want to move on to a different model prospect. Okay. So you gave me a great one for that executive, right? How to kind of like look at the business and think about that. We will get back to the whole networking and stuff. And we covered a lot of that, of course, in the first part of our conversation in the last episode. But what I want to do now is this person wants to be an executive business coach. So it's someone who would coach that person who just decided to leave the corporate world and do whatever. And they've never been a coach before. They may have had training, like they have a coaching certificate and so on, but they have no clue as far as, and I'm not going to talk about marketing or branding or positioning. That's a whole different thing altogether. How do they actually get their sales engine going when maybe they don't necessarily have a network that knows them for that because it's a departure from what they did in the professional world? So their career may have been like maybe they were a personal trainer or they worked at a gym or something like that, or they were a programmer and they just had this passion for personal development and they wanted to work with people to help them with their careers. Who knows? But it's a departure from what they did. So they don't
All
necessarily
you got
have
to
that
do is I'm
awareness.
going to do this. So if you want to be an executive coach or a life coach, have you been through a program where you were coached? Do you have any training in order to do that? Have you worked for a company that maybe offered some of that and got a chance to be around it and figure it out before you start doing it? Now, if you're in an executive position, you've been coaching people for years, you've got the skill set. But don't do
Right.
something you don't already have the skill set for. Not if you need to make money from it.
True.
Learn the skills before you try and teach them.
Okay, so let's say that person has done that,
Okay.
but yet they don't necessarily have the network awareness that that's their thing now. So for example, let's say that even if it was an executive, and like you say, they mentored people, they led teams, and then they got the formal certificate or whatever, and now they want to go out and do that for other people in other companies, but as an executive coach or a professional
Most
coach.
people are not willing to invest in themselves and get the training that they need. The bottom line is you need some sort of sales training, whether it's me or somebody else. Somebody should teach you when I pick up the phone, how do I get over the stuff in my head that's saying they're not going to want to talk to you? You're going to have trouble with
Oh
the key.
gosh, yeah, the head trash.
Second voicemail, okay? And then if they actually answer the phone, how do I say what I need to say in the way that I need to say it so they want to engage in a conversation? How do I not sound like a salesperson with commission breath, a hungry
Yes. Ah, I love
son?
that.
How do I not hear the things that I want to hear? I call it happy ears rather than what they're actually saying. Oh, we'll get back to you. No, you won't. What you want to say, but you can't say that. I'll actually say it to somebody. Listen, I'll give you a call in a week. I said, well, that's interesting. Most people will say they're going to call me in a week. We never talk again.
Yeah, they ghost you.
If
We
we
have a word for that now. It's called ghosting.
and if we actually talk next week, Terry, what would we talk about? Because maybe we don't need to talk next week. I begin moving away from them. I call it
Mhm.
leaning back. So many times in sales, people lean forward and you feel pressure. You can feel it now just with my face being close to the camera. What if we leaned away from the sale and say, look, maybe I might not be your solution. I'm going to be way too expensive for you. And
Oh my
you,
god, you gotta have some confidence to say
it's,
something like that, Eric.
oh, but here's the thing. My dad taught me something again years ago. He said, never be the cheapest. He said, never be the cheapest. Do not try to win the race to the bottom in terms of price.
Yeah,
I was always
amen
the
to
most
that.
expensive music store in town. I was the most expensive direct marketing company in town by 15, 20%. Actually, I had the guy from Sunbank, the director of marketing, playing golf one day. He says, you're 15, 20% higher than all these other people. I get 3, 4 calls a week. I said, why should I pay you 15 to 20% more? I said, Bob, that's a great question. You know, there's 3 reasons that people don't mind paying more to utilize me. Do you have any idea what they are? He said, well, you're extremely responsive. I said, that's one. He says, you really know what you're doing with the list. You make sure we get response. I says, that's two. I said, and three would be, and he came up with a third reason. I forget what it was. And I said, that's why people pay me more. He never brought it up again. By the way,
Interesting. Uh,
whatever 3 reasons they give you are the right
yeah.
reasons.
What I remember you telling me, and I think I even said this on an episode, you never argue with what the customer says.
You never win an
They're
argument.
always right. You know what I mean? As far as what they're stating. Like if they state it, it's a fact to them.
The customer may not always be right, but the customer is always the customer. You can't win an argument with them. But if they're
Mhm.
wrong, you got to get them to say that they're wrong. You can't tell them
Right.
they're wrong. And you do that by very creatively asking a series of questions where they lead you to the fact that, oh crap, it's me.
Mm. It's almost like logicking it through, like you use logic to kind of like go down that tree. And this is a perfect example of what I meant when I talked about generalizing. They stay at the top. They don't probe and get that like let's talk about that for a second. What do you mean when you say you do that? And explain to me this, that, and the other.
Like a stone skipping across the top of the lake. The real
Mhm.
sail is under the lake. And if you
Yeah.
skip the stone on the top, you never get to the root cause. You talk about the symptoms and what's happening. You don't talk about what's causing the problem. There's an old Buddhist saying, you must travel to the headwaters of the river of pain. Because if you try and block it downstream, it's eventually going to overflow. But if you block it at the headwaters, you can stop the flow of that problem, that pain that's coming down the hill.
So you touched on this briefly, and I reacted when I said the head trash. And I want to finish our conversation with your thoughts around it's one thing to get skilled, it's another to take a sales training. It's all those things that you suggested are brilliant and absolute musts. However, there's still the stories inside our head that we've gotten, like you said, when you're a kid and your mom always said no, everything on up through our life, plus the experience that we've had being sold, right? Remember you told me one time we sell like we buy. For my listener, as we wrap up this conversation, give them some things that they can do to help not like wipe it out of their head because it's part of life experience. It's their programming, their default. A lot of it is a story that they've continued to agree with. They recreate failure after failure because they have this head trash. So, what are some of the things, exercises, internal self development exercises, or whatever that
Give
can
you-
help them alleviate that?
I'm going to give you one. And it's so how to cure think it over, both you giving them and you taking them. And it's about having that decision making process. People who make quick decisions expect other people to make quick decisions. People who like to think it over expect other people to think it over. So, how are you wired? If you like to think it over, you're almost going to force the prospect to give you a think it over. You're going to lead them in that direction subconsciously. So, you have to change the way that you buy things. What I teach people is this: the easiest and least threatening way to do it is, Terry, at some point in the next week, you're going to go into a restaurant. True? Okay.
Likely, yes.
I'm having lunch with somebody tomorrow, actually. So when I go in to meet Vince for lunch, you sit down, they give you a menu. Okay. Do not look at the menu. That's the key. Talk to the other person. They're going to look at the menu. If you've got two or three people there, it's even better. You'll be chatting with them. They're all gone over the menu and you're talking to them. Aren't you going to look at the menu? Yeah, I'll get to it. When the waiter or waitress arrives, say, do them first, pick up your menu. You're now under time pressure, right? You scan down the front of the menu. Did you see anything you wanted on the front of the menu, Terry?
Sure. Two things, actually.
What did you see?
I saw a Caesar salad with chicken, and then I saw the tapas with the steak.
Pick one.
Tapas with the steak,
Good.
feeling
You're,
meaty.
you're done. You don't even look at the back of the menu. You say, boom, I'll take that. Good. If you didn't
Mhm,
see anything on the front of the menu that you wanted, you turn the menu over, but the rule is you now can't go back. The other side of the menu no longer exists. You
mm,
passed it by, okay? You come down
mhm.
and you find the bacon cheeseburger and you order. Now, three stops slower was the bacon double cheeseburger. You missed that one because you ordered the bacon cheeseburger. What you're doing is training your mind to make quick decisions
Mhm.
in low risk situations. Now, what happens is when I'm sitting with you in a sales situation and I say, Terry, based on everything we've said, what do you think we should do? They go, you expect me to make a decision. I said, yeah, and no's okay. If you don't think I'm a good fit, tell me no. If you do think I'm a good fit, is there any reason you'd want to delay getting started?
Mm,
Okay, either way, what do you think? Listen,
right.
well, never make a decision the first time. Well, I don't come back, so how are we going to fix that?
It's a very responsible way to have a
Yeah.
conversation.
So look, at the end of the conversation, if you don't want to work with me, that's fine. And if you do want to work with me, that's fine too. Let's make sure it's a good fit before we do anything. So now we're
And the funny
collaborating.
thing is, but check this out. I can see where, I mean, even I did this when you first presented this way back when we were working together. It's almost like they're the person that's trying to make the sale, so to speak, like the solopreneur. And going through that exercise is very intimidating because they think they're losing something, but ironically, they don't have anything to begin with.
Well, but here's
What are
the
you going to lose? Nothing.
can't lose what you don't have. And I tell people, if you never call that prospect, have you lost anything? No.
Mhm.
If you
Mhm.
call them and they say no, have you lost anything? Well, no, I didn't have anything. What if you call them and they say yes? Well, so do you want to make the call or not? Because here's the other thing you have to keep in mind, Terry. Most people out there do very good work at whatever it is that they do. If I know that I could help you and I don't call you to at least have a conversation, I'm actually hurting you. I'm hurting your business and I'm hurting your employees and I'm hurting your wife, kids, husband, whoever is tied into you because I know that I could help you make more money and be more successful. So think about it that way. If you don't call them, you're actually hurting them, their business, and their family.
It's a beautiful reframe and really can address that kind of belief system or, negative self-talk. that right there, that's a great place to end our conversation. Eric, it has been so wonderful. And this is one of those conversations that my listener, I recommend you go back and listen again and again because Eric has dropped so many pearls of wisdom in and throughout this whole time we've been talking through these episodes. So, Eric, thank you so much for being here on My Solopreneur Life.
It has been a pleasure being here.
Well, I know you're disappointed, but that's it for this episode. Listen, the great news is there's another one coming, so stay tuned. Anyway, I just want to make sure that you do the prompt if this episode had a prompt and you get that homework done because you're going to be a better solopreneur. How's that for a maternal finger shaking at you? Hey, listen, thanks so much for being here, for giving me time of your day, and, for taking it on. So if you want to learn more and stay connected with me, just head on over to mysolopreneurlife.com. Thanks a bunch. See you soon. That was pretty good. I think I'll keep that one.